Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, Jimmy Stewart.
And I'm Tommy Duncan.
And today we're going to finish our discussion on the black relationship. And this time we're going to look at it more from a woman's perspective, or some of the issues that black men may say they have with black women, and see if we can't find some solutions to make things better. Okay, Tom, let's just jump in. There's no easy way to put your feet in the water here and ease into the pool. So, is the black woman too strong? You hear that complaint from black women who say that black men can't deal with a strong black woman, and then you do hear some guys who complain that some of the women are far too pig-headed, too stubborn, too much of this, too much of that. But I guess what it really comes down to is that there are some men who want to lead, who want to be the leaders in their household, want to be the leader in the relationship. But society being what it is, with the record of the black man, with the way we portray in the movies, what media puts out about us, it's hard for some black women to give up control of their life, of their family life, and put it into the hands of a person who has a poor track record, or who's depicted in just about every media outlet you turn to as someone who's being irresponsible.
No, you're right. It's a major issue that we have. I think that, in my opinion, in my experience, the biggest difference I see are those women who have been raised in an environment where they've had a strong father figure in their household environment where they were growing up, and those who had not. And bilaterally, most women who have a challenge with male authority, not in terms of dominance and treating them like a format, but following the lead of a black man, to those women typically who didn't grow up around a black man.
That's a good point there. Very good point. So what is to be done in this particular situation when a woman encounters perceivably what's a good black man, and they're thinking long term, or maybe coming together and trying to have a family, and then you have to wrestle internally over control and who's leader here?
Ultimately, they're going to have to, for those women who are type A women, they're going to have a ultra type A male, because if they're not accustomed to having if they're already very strong-willed or strong-minded, and they're accustomed to being around weak men or no men, they're going to have a ultra type A male in order to balance out that. But ultimately, the challenge is going to be, if it's the challenge of having two type A's in the same professional environment, typically there's going to be some fallout, because there's going to be a competition for control. That's the problem. So what happens is you have a lot of type A women who are looking for a soft male, because they don't want someone who's going to compete with them.
But in those situations, though, Tom, I don't know, and I know a few women who are in that situation, and not one of them is happy long term.
I would agree.
They always end up unhappy with his lack of leadership. Initially, they're okay with it. Like you said in the beginning, that's what they're looking for.
Because they're in control.
Because they're in control.
Right.
But as time goes on, the longer they're together, the more annoying it becomes that he lacks the leadership that they deep down crave and desire. And now his softness becomes a weakness, becomes a detriment to their relationship.
I would agree. And again, that's what they're looking for, but ultimately they have to find the personal discipline, or they have to reprogram themselves to learn to follow someone else's lead and to trust that person. That's probably the biggest battle they have.
Now, what about for the men that may be in this situation? I know a couple of guys who have gotten married and they've just acquiesced, they've just settled, they just got tired of putting up the fight, and it's just easier to go home and play PlayStation and pacify themselves, which I don't think is the right way to deal with it. Give up the battle. And like you said, it is a negotiation. You got to work on finding where that zone is. But it doesn't help the family structure, especially if you have children in the environment, to have a weak father figure. Someone who comes home and looks for any way to disengage from you and the family. I hear women tell me that my husband doesn't talk to me anymore. Well, when you talk to him, his side of the story, it's like, why talk when she's going to beat me down, complain, and I'm always wrong. But in that situation, you have to continue to communicate, because you have to teach your kids how to deal and negotiate in these situations. If they see you just coming home and jumping on the PlayStation and till dinner time and play a little bit more and then go to bed, they may think that it's normal for a husband not to talk to his wife, and that's not normal.
You're right. Well, I think that's why a wise person once said, that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, because you need to listen more than you do talk. And so those women who are in that situation, asking questions is one thing, but being demanding or domineering is probably not going to get you that far with someone who has a tendency to maybe not be quite as talkative and or who may have a lot to say, but men and women, again, when they come home, they have 2 completely MOs. Typically, not always, a woman wants to come home and talk for like the next 30 to 45 minutes to get everything off their plate. A guy usually wants to kind of go into his man cave or whatever and just kind of relax, think, and especially black men, because in a lot of cases we're not in an environment that is nurturing for us. So typically, if we're having a stressful day, we need some relaxation and some peace for a couple of minutes, and then maybe we can talk. But again, that's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Okay.
There's a very good friend of mine, a woman. She's married, by the way. She said, a woman can get anything she wants from a man if she will learn how to listen first.
I agree with that. Yeah, I certainly agree with that. That brings us to our next topic when it comes to women. That you hear this from some, and it certainly has been my observation also, that when it comes to how do you get what you want from a man, these are things that used to be passed down from mother to daughter as part of the social skills that are required to teach her on how to make their relationship work. I'm not sure if mothers teach their daughters this anymore. And as a result, I'm convinced that there are many, many, many women who have no clue how to get what they want from their significant other than to complain, fuss, and make a lot of noise.
So what's the question? I'm sorry.
The question is, what is your view or opinion, or what do you think? Do you believe that women are equipped and have the skills necessary to get what they want in a peaceful way, without complaining, without fussing, without nagging their significant other to get what they want?
That's a good question. Again, it goes down to if they're first willing to listen, and more importantly, there's a preacher, matter of fact, Oak Cliff, a preacher, big mega church. Study your mate. Learn and understand, what makes them tick, what motivates them, and what brings them at a place of peace. And I think if you take the time to listen and study them over a period of time, you can figure out what exactly they want and need, and then I think you can get what they want. Because ultimately, if a man is happy, he's willing to turn over the keys and the credit card.
Oh, yes. You're right. I think if you can find a way to make him happy, I don't think it takes that much. Men are somewhat simple creatures.
Right.
You feed us, leave us alone, don't bother us too much. But then on top of that, help us understand what makes you happy. And if it's something that he can do, when he does do it, it's almost, I hate to use this as an example, but it's almost like training a dog. When your dog does something well, you reward the dog and you reinforce that behavior with positive reinforcement. I think it's the same thing with men. When he finally gets up and takes the trash out that you want, rather than, you finally took the trash out, don't make it a negative experience. Make it a positive. Pat him on the back. When you're around company, say good things about him, like, hey, I have a really good husband because he even takes the trash out now without me having to bother him or say anything. And by making him feel good about what he's done, you're now reinforcing that behavior with a positive experience that he's going to want more of. Who doesn't want to have good things said about them or to be rewarded when good things happen? But if there's no reward, whether you do it or not, then I may as well not do it and come get the same results as I do if I do it. If that makes any sense.
Right. And then ultimately what you're saying is correct. The one thing they're not teaching as much as they used to is how to stroke a man's ego.
Yes.
That's the key. If you learn how to stroke that man's, and we're not all the same, even though most of us are pretty similar. If you learn how to stroke a man's ego in the right way, then things will typically turn in your favor.
My grandmother was very good about that. I remember when I was a little boy, and she took some chicken out one time to cook, and then she asked my grandfather, do you want chicken or you want pork chop? And she's already pulled the chicken out now, so it's already been decided that we're having chicken. So, but she hollered into the living room, do you want chicken or you want pork chops? I want pork chops. Okay, we'll need you to go to the store and get this. You know what? Let's just go ahead and go with the chicken. You know what? You're so smart. That's a really good decision. And so with little simple things like that, she would tell me how it was important for her to make my grandfather feel as though, because he would work long hours, he was away from the house a lot of time, in order to make him feel connected to the home, how she would let him make decisions around the house. Stuff that she didn't even care about, but it was important for her to even go to him and ask him about the curtain colors, about this and little stuff. And then when he made a decision, make a parade about it, make a big deal about it, to make him feel like he just made some monumental decision for the house that's going to make things run smoothly. But really, in her mind, this is nothing. I'm just doing this to keep him engaged and make him feel good about. Because if he ever has to wonder, like, why am I out here busting my butt, working hard to do all of this? In the back of his mind, he's to know that I'm doing this because that household back there, my wife and my kids that live there, I'm doing it for them. So you don't ever want him to question why he's doing something. But I don't think women are taught how to keep their men engaged, how to do. And I've heard women say, well, I don't want to be tricking him and playing those kind of games. Is that really a game? Is that really tricking him to maybe help him feel connected and involved to your household? A household that you don't want him to walk out of one day because he feels no connection to it whatsoever. He doesn't have any say here. It's just you and those kids there. He may feel like I'm going to go someplace else where at least I have some say in what goes on. So I think, like you said, 2 ears, one mouth. If people, especially women, would kind of listen more, figure out what makes the man tick. Men are not that complicated. Give them a chance to make some decisions, even if they're insignificant decisions, and then make a big deal about them, about the decision as if he just became Solomon and made the most wise decision ever. Find little ways to help him stay connected to you, to your kids, to the household. Even if they're not his kids, I think there's still ways you can help him become connected to the children, like even if they're not his, if you give some thought to it.
Yeah, I think you brought up a very, very good point that I think really wraps around a lot of what we were talking about earlier, that your grandmother, she made your grandfather feel empowered.
Yes.
And I think that is one element that we are struggling with in our community that probably is not as much of a problem in other communities, is that our women, if they really want to get what they need from their men, they have to make sure that their men feel empowered. Not allow them to run over them,
right,
to be abusive in any way.
Not the boot on their neck kind of
there
power.
you go. But to puff them up, stroke their ego, and make them feel empowered. And that will motivate him,
yes,
to go out there and do what he can do and possibly what he can't do, to do whatever he basically put him in a position of being a lead. And that's where ultimately your grandmother said, well, I really know what I want to do, but I'm going to empower him to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get what I want,
yes,
at the same time, so it makes everyone happy.
Makes everyone happy.
But that is the key, learning how to make your man feel empowered. And I think that's one area that we've struggled with within our community.
Tom, big issue there, yes.
Right. That we've got to figure that out.
Because there are a lot of men who complain about it, who tell that same story, like I said, not feeling empowered in their homes. And so if they don't feel empowerment and connected to it, it's easy to walk away and leave it.
Right, right.
And so I don't think our women, I don't know if they don't realize how important that is to any man, but especially black men who, let's face it, we don't dominate the corporate boardrooms of America. We're not major drivers of any industry that I know of.
Except for maybe the church.
I was going to say church and politics are probably the only places where a black man has some freedom to be empowered to do what he wants to do. And then his household. So, but if you can't come home and be king in your own castle, if the queen is usurping your authority in the castle, in the kingdom, then and you don't feel like much of a king, then you may decide to go build a kingdom someplace else.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's probably one more element, Jimmy, that I think we can all, as men, at least come to a happy medium on. As a woman, if you can give your man, whether it's once a week or once a day or whatever it is, just give him some free time.
Some free time.
Because I mean, every man that I know, especially every married man that I know, well, what are you doing? What you got going on today? Well, I got to go home and start working on my wife's, just the things to do. But if you can get, once a week, whether it's a day or, whatever it is, give him some free time to do, whatever he wants to do. Man, you don't know how empowering that feels.
Time, especially come football season.
Yes.
When it's kickoff, do not come and sit down when it's kickoff saying, we need to talk. You know what? For me, I'm a big Cowboy fan. And on Sunday or whatever day they're playing,
my condolences.
When that ball is kicked off, I don't care what's going on in the rest of the world. I don't care at that point because I'm there to watch the game. It'll have to wait until after the game, or you can catch me before the game. But do not, while I'm sitting there watching the game, come and say, now I want to talk about this or ask you that and get your opinion. No, that's
not the time.
Not the time. You need to give me a little space at that point. You're right, a lot of guys, sometimes they come home, they need a little time, a little space to just unwind, to take their battle protective gear off and relax for a minute before you come and bombard them with stuff. So, yeah, space is important. Empowerment is important. Keeping your man connected and engaged is important. All the things that the feminist movement, I think that women shouldn't do anymore, I think is part of the reason why we struggle so much, because a lot of black women who call themselves feminists have bought into the whole psychology of the feminist movement. But if you look at people who head the feminist movement, the Gloria Steinems of the world and the Now leaders, they all have husbands, they all have families. And it's amazing to me how such a large body of women can come out and speak out against marriage is slavery, but yet you have a husband, you have children. Why isn't your marriage slavery? But I think all too often our women take the message and take it seriously, while some of these may only be putting the message out there for financial gain or for political reasons. But they're certainly not applying it to their life because, like I said, every last one of them that I've kept up with for the last 20 years are all married with families.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, to your point, major women's movements in the 20th and now the 21st century have had a completely different impact on the white community than they have in the black community.
Because a white feminist can still have a family, have a husband. The black feminist is so bought into the message sometimes and believe in the message that she may not have one. And the impact of the message on both, for us, has been disastrous. For them, they can still survive and live with it. Because, like I said, I don't think they buy into the message as much as our women buy into the message, which is kind of sad. Are there any other hot topic items out there, Tom, that I guess either from the woman's perspective, that is what's wrong with why they're not able to find black men, or is it just the black man that's the problem?
Well, again, that's a multifaceted question, and I appreciate it. I think that for once a good black men, that we need to begin to reevaluate and redefine what we mean by the good black men, and that obviously is going to change depending on who you're talking to.
True.
But I believe that there are specific things that most women are looking for. Someone who is responsible,
Right.
someone who will take a lead, someone who obviously loves and worships her as well.
Correct.
But again, you have to give a person room to do that, and you can't challenge them constantly, because ultimately, if you're trying to bring a union together, you can't afford to fight for control.
True, that is true. And so all very, very good points that you just brought up. And all too often, I don't think we spend enough time as we're contemplating a long-term relationship with someone, talk about these things. We somehow assume that these things are just going to work themselves out. And then you get into the union, and then you find out that you have conflict. You're bumping heads in certain areas. And I think at the heart of it, Tom, for me, this is just my personal philosophy that I share with others, is I think that, especially for the black woman, that she's a very insecure creature, that she may have made some bad decisions about relationship, and gotten some very bad advice from those women around her that she looked up to over the years. And then as a result of that insecurity, in order for her to feel safe, she needs to be in control of things. That's where that whole tug of war for control in the relationship comes from. But I think if you balance that with someone who's very secure, who's very strong, who has good leadership qualities, and like I said, being a leader is not, I get to make all the decisions. It's more about being responsible and making sure everyone else is safe and that everyone needs are taken care of. And you're putting their needs above your own. So that's the kind of, we're talking more of the ministry of Jesus Christ leadership versus I'm in charge and you have to do what I say, which is what women kind of think of when you say now strong leadership. But I think if you can balance her insecurity with security of your own, provide her with a plan, be responsible, stick to it. And then I think for the women, understand that men are going to sometimes make mistakes. They are. We're not perfect. When they do make a mistake, if I make a mistake in trying to do what's right for my family and it doesn't quite work out, please do not throw it back in my face later on. You see, we followed you and we tried this and wow, look what happened. See, that's why I should control the money and not leave it up to you to invest on. See, if you do that, you're undermining his leadership. And rather than take the opportunity to say, okay, maybe this didn't work out, but I know your heart was in the right place, but maybe in the future, find a way to provide more counseling for him, and you guys sit down and talk about it. His job should be to listen to all the pros and cons about everything, and then in the end, weigh that against the interests of the family, and then make a decision. Someone has to make a decision in the end. And when that decision is made, you need to be on board with supporting that decision. Don't undermine the decision later on and see, I knew that was the wrong decision. Well, if you knew it was the wrong decision, then you should allow me to make it. Or if I made it without you, then obviously you didn't give me enough counsel to let me know that how you were really feeling, because I thought we were moving forward. I didn't know I was moving forward and just pulling you along.
Yeah, ultimately. And, at the end of the day, if you can't follow a man's decision making, then you probably shouldn't be with him.
That, that's 100% true. Really, that may be the best advice we've offered on the show today. If you cannot follow his leadership, you shouldn't be with him. And for whatever reason, it doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't make him a good person, or vice versa.
Just not the right.
It's just not the right one, right? It may not be the right fit for you. You need to be with someone where his leadership style and your leadership style can synergize together to make you both stronger. But like I said, we do talk about leadership. It's not that the male or the husband is just in charge or he needs to get the boss everyone around. It's really the type of leadership that means he's responsible for everything.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, and I'll make this very quick. I was at church a few weeks ago, and I saw a young man and a young lady at church. They were probably both in their early 20s.
Okay.
And so they were going up to the church, and the young lady was kind of walking in front of the young man, and the young man was kind of following her. But I presumed that they were a couple.
Okay.
And so they went up to the front, and I guess they didn't go to the front. They were waiting to get into the church, and I was waiting as well. And then she started talking to him, and then she went out first and led him out, and then he went the other way. And I just shook my head.
So this happened when you were going into the church?
We were waiting to get into the church. We were at the front door. The preacher was talking, so the doors of the church is closed. And so it was very clear and obvious that she was leading the way.
So when they opened the doors,
she was leading the way.
And how did that make him, from your observation, how do you think that made him feel in that situation?
I believe that it probably, I don't know that he even knew. I don't know that he even considered it. To me, it looked like he was demasculating. But I don't know that he knew the difference.
And it's very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad. A friend of mine, this is years ago, and when I was going out to buy a television, I bought this huge, big television to watch the game on. And he was asking me where did I get it from, and I told him I got it from Sam's, and he didn't have a Sam's card. So I told him, you could use mine. I'll go with you, and we can pick up one, and you can use my card, and you get it at a little cheaper than some other places that I saw the same TV. Well, the weekend we were supposed to go to get the TV, he called me up and told me that things had changed. I said, well, okay, what's wrong? Did you go another day? No, I told the wife what I was going to do, and she said no. I said, okay. And then I was just curious. I wanted to know if maybe the plan got nixed because I need the money for something else.
Right.
I said, well, hey, man, I hope you weren't going to spend like your children's college money. I was just joking, to buy this TV. He said, no, it was nothing like that. We have the money, and we could easily afford it. And I said, oh, okay. I said, did you just change your mind? You don't want? He said, no, I still want one. I said, well, okay, then what's wrong? He said, well, when I told the wife what I was doing, she said, yeah, I've been there, it's fine. And so she vetoed the plan. I said, oh, okay. Well, I guess you didn't discuss this before you decided to do it, which probably was a mistake.
Right.
But on top of that, the fact that she can veto your plan to buy a TV. I mean, sure, it was an expensive TV. It was about $2,000 TV. But
nice
still,
TV.
Nice TV. So, but you should discuss it with her to spend that kind of money on the television to make sure that you get her buy-in for it. But the fact that that she could just veto the decision, and I mean, and he was really dejected about it, and I could tell if I was there, he'd probably have his head down, probably in a little bit of embarrassment that he is not the type of man in his family that can go out and just make a decision and buy something. So, which you probably should not do in an irresponsible way. I'm not saying
I'd agree with that.
Men should go out and buy television when your family needs the money for other things.
Like food.
Like food, you pay bills with. I don't want you to have to call somebody up and say, I can't pay my mortgage because I bought the television. But a man should be able, in my situation, I like Cowboy football. And I want to be able to watch the game, if I can afford to, on a very nice television. So that's very important to me. And so I would simply explain to my wife, now look, I'm going to do this. I need to do this. Here's why. I'm not being selfish. That financially we're okay. It's not going to bankrupt us. But I would just maybe like to enjoy the game on a really nice television. And I'd like to get your feedback on what you think to make sure it's okay. But if she says it's okay, then later on I don't want to hear anything bad about the television decision at that point. Because I feel that if you really had anything to say about it negatively, you should have said it at the very beginning. And I may have made a decision at that point not to get the television if she didn't buy into it. But I would hope that she would understand my reason for wanting the television and figure that that would be something that she'd go along with for me.
Right. And ultimately, he needs to be prepared to probably do something nice for her as well.
Yes, I would agree. To balance things out, that it kind of works out that way.
Exactly. Because
you know that she's going to test the water one day and say, I love to go on a shopping spree and buy a new outfit or buy this and that. And boy, that's not the time to be saying, yeah, honey, but we need the money for X, Y, Z. Because she's going to say, well, what, we didn't need the money when you bought that television, did you? So if you're going to spend that kind of money on a television, be prepared to at least spend that kind of money for something else that she wants down the road, because it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to happen. So, Tom, we have about 5 minutes left, man, before we have to start wrapping up the show. Really about, I don't know, maybe 7 minutes. In this last 7 minutes, man, what other useful advice can we offer black women to help in this situation if they meet a guy? Let's ask it. You talked about the good black guy and what that really means.
Right.
Let's talk about that for a minute. What is a good black guy? What is a good guy, period, for women?
That's a good question. It's in the eye of the beholder. But
how do you recognize one if you have one or don't have one? If you're curious to know if you have a good guy or not, you think he's a good guy, but hey, that Tommy and Jimmy guy said.
I think ultimately it, first and foremost, someone who takes personal responsibility for his decisions and his actions.
So his personal life is something that maybe you should examine before you combine your lives together.
Absolutely.
To make sure he's lived responsibly.
Absolutely, because if he's someone who depends on his mama all the time for everything, ultimately that's going to change to you.
Yeah. Or he may continue to turn to mama, and that may irritate you that he's such a mama's boy. What else? Now, on the leadership front, how will a woman know if he's a good leader or not while they're dating?
I think it's in small things. I think most women, even though, of course, you better not miss the big things, it's the small things that they say that really matter. So a lot of the small day-to-day things are personal discipline, daily habits. That's going to be different things to different women in terms of what their background is. If they had a father, what she saw in him, because she's going to be looking for that in another man. It probably shouldn't be the same, because you shouldn't measure a man by your dad. But looking at the small day-to-day decisions are going to be very important. That could be things in terms of maybe how he spends his money. That could be his prayer life. That could be how he treats other people.
Sure.
If you go out to a restaurant, how does he treat the server? Someone like that. How he communicates with other people. And I think also seeing that person, whether this is a woman to a man or a man to a woman, observing their behavior in different surroundings, in their professional life, where they are with their folks that they work with their family, with their friends, just observing those different behaviors.
I want to say, since you know the restaurant piece, that is something that you can quickly determine what his leadership style is. One, if you're going to go out to eat and you haven't decided on a restaurant, and you turn to him and say, you pick a restaurant. He comes back and say, or you say, well, no, it doesn't matter to me. Whatever you want or wherever you want to go is fine with me. If he comes back and says, no, you pick something, then that right there is a sign that he's not comfortable making the decision, even something as small as where we're going to eat. I used to have a sister-in-law. This is my ex-wife's sister, and her late husband. One of the things that she said that bothered her was that she could never get him to make a decision about where they were going to eat sometimes. So they would go back and forth over, no, you pick someplace. No, wherever you want to go, I don't care, you pick a place. Yeah, I don't care either, you pick something. And the fact that he would make a decision, early on in their relationship, she thought this was the greatest thing ever, because whatever she wanted to do, they did it. He always acquiesced to whatever she wanted. Over time, it would irritate her that she couldn't get him to make a simple decision on anything, because she had to make all the decisions. So I would say the restaurant is, if you're dating or you just go, if he can't make a decision about a restaurant, there's a good chance he's not going to make good decisions about other things in life. So you may want to keep that in mind. And then, like you said, about how you deal with the waitstaff. If there's a problem with the food, is he engaging? Is he stepping up to the plate to take care of it? Or is he allowing you to talk to the waitstaff on your own to fix something? So that's a telltale sign also, plus all the other things that you mentioned.
One other thing that I think for women is going to be extremely important, observe the relationship that he has with his mother.
Right.
Whether that is close, whether that is distant. And actually, those two can have different nuances, because if you have a man who is very close to his mother, that's a good thing. But then
right.
I've observed from some women that can be potentially a side effect of that,
sure.
Because ultimately, if they do decide to get together, get married, and he's still cleaving to his mother, and he's married,
for advice and for yes.
There we go, and that gets in the way of the
about
relationship. That could be very problematic. Also, if he has a relationship with his father, what that's like, and dig into the past on that, because if he did not have a relationship with a father or a father at all, sometimes there are men who are able to compensate for that in ways, but if they're not and they don't have a relationship with that father, that can be a challenge as well. So those are small nuances, none of them being bad, it's just that you need to be aware of it.
And see, I think, in addition to that, Tom, I think if you sit down and talk about these things early on in the relationship, so you set some ground rules of what should I be able to expect from you as a husband here and the leader of our household that I can hold you to. These are things you stand for. These are your principles. So if you violate that principle later on, I can come back to you and say, you told me this before we got married, and this is what I'm observing now, and the two don't match. And I expect you, as a man, to live up to what you told me. Not in a complaining way, not fussing about it, not making a lot of noise, but to let the man know that his behavior now is not living up to his words. So it's not like you're pushing this on him. And I think if you give him the challenge, that you let him know that I expect more from you, I expect better from you, that if he's a good, decent guy, he'll live up to the challenge at that point of becoming a better man.
A couple of questions that you may want to consider asking someone, not someone that you just met out and really see that much into it, but if it's someone that you're really looking at, is asking him a few very simple questions. What is your plan for your life?
The plan is very important. Yes.
What do you see as your general goals and priorities over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes.
Something that people may sleep on. What do you feel is the role of your woman or partner in your life?
And I would say, to add to that, Tom, the plan is important. Ladies, if you get to the point where you're not sure where the relationship is going, you may ask your significant other, hey, where is this relationship going? And I'm going to tell you right now, if he fumble with his words, if you get a lot of then he clearly has not thought about it. And if he doesn't give you a good answer, there's a good chance that your relationship is not going anywhere. That wherever you are at that point is probably as good as it's going to get. So if he's thought about you guys long-term or future with you, he'll have an answer for you. He'll be able to say, this is what I'm thinking about for the future, this is our plan, this is what I'm thinking. But if he can't articulate at that time, and he hadn't thought about it, then if he hadn't visually saw you guys in the future or having the future together, then you're just wasting your time. That's just my advice to women. If you get to that point where you're not sure if the relationship is going anywhere, just ask them.
And then the other thing in terms of the importance factor, because of course, people define sacrifice differently. So let's say if you have someone who doesn't really have a lot and they're sacrificing maybe the little financial resources that they have,
yeah,
then that could be a big thing. But if it's someone who's a billionaire, a multimillionaire, Jimmy, it may not mean a thing.
Right.
But let's say if it's someone who has a lot of money but doesn't have a lot of time, and they sacrifice their time for you, you have to figure out what it is for that person, what the most important sacrifice is. Some women think that they're getting over because he's spending a lot of money,
right,
but money may not mean very much to
because he has money.
Exactly.
Right.
And it could be time, or it could be something else. And so that's the other important thing. Figure out what sacrifice means to that person and where do you play in that.
Sure. So I hope you've enjoyed some of the advice that we've tried to offer. And we will be doing future shows, and we will maybe delve into this a little bit more, maybe offer some more suggestions and advice. If you have any questions, feel free to leave us comments, and we will try to answer them. We'll respond to every comment. And the other thing, if we get enough interest, we will actually dedicate a show to it to discuss it in further detail. So we're going to give a quick thank to our sponsors, to Fitness 360 for allowing us to use their building for our studio.
Also MOTC Telecom.
And to For Us Films, who does our editing and uploading.
And then, of course, finally, to our viewers, just
our
like
viewers
yourself.
and subscribers, yes. So please subscribe to our show. Please encourage others to watch our show. And then if you like what you hear, or even if you don't like it, feel free to leave us comments, and myself and Tommy we promise to respond to every comment that you leave us.
Thank you very much, folks, and we appreciate your time.
Take care. Bye.
That's all.